Hello and welcome to the Warwick F1 show. It's not a race week this week. We're looking forward to the Mexican Grand Prix, of course. Shush. I know Will's shenanigans, so his mic was turned off, so he couldn't interrupt me. But yeah, never mind. It's the Mexican Grand Prix this weekend, of course. But we've done the preview for that. That was Will's turn. It's my turn now, and I couldn't think of one really good idea for the show this week. So we're going to do 10 kind of mediocre ideas, which should make a really good show when we put them all together. Either that, or I've just wasted 10 show ideas, and we'll see how it turns out. So, of course, my name's Jack Rowe, joined by the head of Raw Sport, Will Kingswood.
Yeah, I'm back again.
And we've got... I don't know if I can even call you a guest at this point. Chinmay's back again.
Yeah, I'm back as well.
My buddy, my loyal little helper.
Yeah.
You're a member of Raw and the Warwick F1 Society. So I guess we're just going to...
He's betrayed you.
What do you mean he's betrayed me?
Well, he clearly felt the grass was greener on the other side.
No. We've got we need an even mix, don't we?
I think I decided to take the best of both worlds, is what we can say.
Yeah.
Both of us. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm gonna go over the show schedule pretty quickly. We've got 10 topics to talk about. And it's going to be super quick fire because that means 10 different segments. That means 11 advert breaks. So you're going to have about 5 or 6 minutes, maybe up to 8 minutes to talk about each one, and then we'll put a short song on and we'll go again. So we're just going to crack right into it. Like, no time for song breaks. And the first one on the list is kind of F1 Esports, and I just want to know from you guys, one, do you watch it? Why not? And is it functional? Is there something we can do to improve it?
Right, I watched the Italian Grand Prix, and from what I saw, it was quite fun. Like, I think it is good to have just some of the best esports players in the world. I think F1 works well as an esports sort of structure, and the fact that F1 themselves so heavily promote it, so heavily integrate it as part of just, I guess, the F1 brand, makes it probably better than a lot of other esports, especially ones based on like real life sports.
Yeah, have you watched it, Chinmay?
Not much, to be fair. I mean, I have watched the odd race in there, and sometimes I do watch the highlights. I just don't really spend time just physically watching the esports. But when I do watch esports, they're actually quite a lot of fun, I'm not gonna lie. And especially with the esports being quite mega nowadays and just increasing, it's nice to see just F1 but with other people.
Okay, so we know that F1 Esports is run on kind of the latest game, and we'll come back to the game a little bit later as well, but is that kind of an issue? Is it esports ready? Because you've got iRacing, right? That's a proper simulator. You've got Assetto Corsa. You've got R Factor. We've seen a lot of these being used over the lockdown. Is F1 ready for that, right?
I think maybe, obviously you've got the idea that F1 is properly licensed by Codemasters, and I think now the Codemasters are owned by EA as well. I think that the sport, I think it works. I think that's what I'd say. I think it works because it especially gives more accessibility to like more general, more casual players. Because when you think like FIFA, like esports on that, everyone can go and play FIFA. Everyone can go and play the F1 game. So it gives that accessibility. And I think the pros are fine with it. Maybe they'd prefer being on a simulator, or on like more of a simulator game, like Assetto Corsa or iRacing, but it doesn't need to be, I think.
On that point, you've mentioned the cost of it, and if we look at esports in general, what are the really big esports? League of Legends, free. Valorant, free. CSGO, free. What else are we looking at? Is F1 limited because it is because the game is the business, not because it's the esport? No, I've broken Chinmay. What do you reckon, Will?
I think it's different to like a League of Legends, a Valorant, and things like that, just because it's based on an actual sport, and especially if you look at the sport genre of games, they all cost money, and it's F1. I think it's it's a bit more niche than like football, and the esports is just one part of the game, as opposed to being like the only part of the game. You can do league racing, just other competitive racing like casual racing, career mode, my driver and things like that is part of the game as opposed to being the main focus of it. So I think that it works in what it is at the moment. Obviously you're always going to have benefits to having more money. Like if you can afford like a sim rig, then it's going to be easier to drive than if you're on the pad. But obviously the greatest rise to the top, and there are some very, very good pad players that still manage to compete with the best.
Yeah. Any plans to join the F1 esports crew, Chinmay?
I mean, I do own the game, but I haven't. Maybe some point in the future.
I just find it really difficult on the controller. I play Forza Horizon. I just like the arcade aspect and the fact I can hoon through the countryside at 200 miles an hour in like a Lamborghini. It's in Mexico. I need to get that game. Forza Horizon 5. Shout out to Turn 10.
All right,
Give me a free copy.
Well, I said we were going to do short and quick. We're going to end there once we've taken a short break, and it really will be a short one. We'll be back. We'll talk about the virtual Grand Prix, the ones that took place in 2020, of course, and the takeover of Codemasters by EA. Back to the scheduled programming. It's the Warwick F1 show, just talking about some random topics, I guess. And we were kind of moving on from Warwick Esports.
Warwick
Esports. Formula One Esports.
Yeah.
And we're going to move on to kind of talk about the virtual Grand Prix. So a little bit of a segue there. Of course, taking place in 2020, when we didn't see on-track action for, how long is it, 9 months maybe?
It would be November to June, probably 7.
Yeah, okay. It was a long time. It felt like a long time. And I think that was the time when we really realised that racing is viable, right? We saw the virtual Grand Prix. How many of them were there? 3, maybe?
About 4 or 5 or so.
Yeah.
Well, quite a few of them.
Yeah.
I think they ran some more after kind of testing or something like that, didn't they? Or maybe it's just after the first lockdown ended. We saw them. We saw some IndyCar races. NASCAR went big on it. We saw loads and loads of racing. I just want to kind of get from you, like, one, did you watch it, and kind of what stood out to you?
I did watch them. I don't remember much of them because it was last year now, but I still remember there was some actually really good racing happening between I think it was Brazil, where it was about 4 laps where Alex Albon and Charles Leclerc literally went side by side for literally side by side continuously, or at least exchanging positions constantly for about 4 or 5 laps. It was just one of the best, like, really, really good racing that I've seen. That. And it's also fun to see how other people, like, outside of F1 also get involved. I think one of the goalkeepers also...
Thibaut Courtois, yeah.
Yeah, Courtois got involved in a lot of esports. And it was just nice to see how many people really did get involved in the virtual Grand Prix. And it's also really nice to see F1 actually do something during lockdown to keep all its fans entertained as well.
Yeah, is it something that we're likely to see again? Is it a one-off thing, or... Because we know that Liberty Media really like this kind of thing. They want the marketing, they want the hype around it. They've really benefited from the Twitch quartet, as we like to say. Would you like to see it again, Will?
I mean, I think it'll be a one-off thing. I think so. Obviously, it started with Veloce, I want to say, that had not the Australian Grand Prix in the wake of obviously the race being cancelled in March, and then it sort of got brought under F1's wing, and then they did their own like virtual Grand Prix series. But realistically, I don't think it'll happen again. I think obviously they want to put more focus on the esports, and like the drivers probably don't have time. I think you will see drivers probably streaming again, you'll see them on Twitch, like Leclerc, Russell, Albon, Norris. I think he still streams. I think you'll see them back there, and I think you will see them racing, just probably not in the formalised structure that we saw over those months.
Yeah, because we kind of see, I guess, this expanded calendar, right? F1 wants to take as much of that year as possible. Is this a solution to that? Because, I mean, with 23 races, there's a lot of talk about, teams being stretched to their limit. And we saw, Formula E did it as well, didn't they? They did a proper one. Like, they had all the drivers involved. It was a requirement for them. So, obviously, it's possible. Is that a solution to that problem? Or is it an addition? Or just a bit meh for them?
I think it would be a nice addition. I think it would probably be nice to have something a little bit different, a bit offbeat, to see us involved with every single F1 driver just doing something different. But I doubt that all the drivers would want to get involved with it. I don't see all F1 drivers, at least, willing to be doing something like an esports, I'm not going to lie. But it'll be good to see something like this happen every once in a while, just to give an offbeat and, have a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, is it more about that? Is it more about the having a laugh than that? In that case, I think, who was it? Ian Poulter, the golfer, right down the back every week, got in the way. But is it more about that? Do we need to see more, like, fun little bits? Is it enough to just have 20 drivers that you mostly know just go and race around a thing?
Well, I think it was perfect from a marketing standpoint, because you are taking people from outside the world of F1. You had like your Thibaut Courtois, you had your who else? Oh, Ian Poulter, you said, and then you got YouTubers like Pieface, and then YouTubers from within the F1 scene like Arava, T-Met Marduk, took part in a load of the races. Jimmy Broadbent, obviously, and then I think it just merged sort of. While F1 was a thing, I don't think enough people knew enough people to talk about F1 with. But as soon as you see, your favourite, or like Real Madrid fans, you see your goalkeeper driving in the virtual Grand Prix, you're like, and you like F1, you're like, Courtois did you see Courtois in F1 to like other Real Madrid fans? And then you talk about F1. I think the variety of competitors meant that more people were drawn into the sport, because while they may have obviously that one interest, they may be interested in FIFA through Pieface, golf through Ian Poulter, football through Courtois. That brought them into F1 and sort of linked fandoms that weren't originally linked in the first place.
It's a good point. We're gonna kind of talk about EA as well. A bit of a meme, I think. But EA own Codemasters at the moment, don't they? They have done since before. When was it? Was it like midway through the development of F1 2021, I think?
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to ruin it, basically? Because they've got a reputation for doing that, haven't they? They own all the FIFAs, the NBAs, whatever. And yeah, it's difficult to say. But do you think they're going to ruin it?
I hope not. That's all I hope for. I just hope Codemasters keep pretty much all the say in the development side of things compared to EA.
I don't think F1 will let them ruin it, because they'll just stop giving the license. F1 know that the game especially is another way for fans to get introduced into the sport. Like, you see it whenever the game comes out in June, that's the game for at least a week. Everyone, or like a load of streamers play it, things like that. F1 won't let EA ruin it, and they also won't allow. And I think there's too much of history of how it works. You get access to all the cars, all the drivers. Maybe they make online a bit more like EA-y. But
pay to win.
To be honest, online isn't even the main aspect of F1 as opposed to obviously FIFA. Most people, I'd say, play career mode and My Driver. Like, I got the game last year. I didn't really do much online. I did career mode most of the time.
I mean, I've had every single Formula 1 game since 2017, and I've played online mode twice in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I think online works a lot better. As opposed to a FIFA where you can just play someone random, online works better when you're playing with friends. And then that's always going to be a thing. And then other than that, most people do a career mode because realistically, you can make a career mode as hard or as easy as you want it to be. You've got that control. And I think because of that and because it's been so ingrained for so long that there's career mode, there's online, and there's now a few newer features, like it won't, I don't even think EA, to finish off, can ruin the game. I don't see a way of them making it worse. I can only see a way of, because they're probably going to give Codemasters so much more money, that the game can only really get better.
All right, well, we'll come back to that in about 2 years' time, and we'll see, shall we? And we're back with the Warwick F1 show, and we're just going little section by little section. So at the moment, we have just talked about the F1 game, and we're going to go talk about kind of Quadrant. We're going to use Quadrant as a lens to look at the impact that F1 drivers can have. And if you don't know what Quadrant is, it is essentially Lando Norris's own brand, selling clothing. He sponsors a couple of karts or something like that, and most importantly, I think the YouTube channel, that's the biggest place, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen any of that?
I've watched a bit of it. I think I always find it better when they've got guests on. I don't know, I didn't really watch any of their channels individually. So I didn't really see the appeal of watching the group channel because, like, I didn't.
That's not the only F1 kind of group channel we've got, right? And we've talked about it already. There's Veloce Esports. Is this tendency to kind of take a few? It's not even minor, is it? These are like reasonably sized channels and just kind of mush them together. Is that something we're going to see more in the future? Do you think? Probably.
I mean, to be fair, something like this you can never predict what you're going to find. You know. Next thing you know, probably Veloce is going to, I don't know, probably do a collaboration with KSI, and then you never know with anything. I mean, I doubt. The chance of that is probably next to nothing. I mean, but you probably might see channels like this do stuff for Formula 1. I mean, Formula 1 YouTube channel's already done stuff. I think was it Josh Ravel did something with the
F2 review. That's such a good video.
I mean, he's a brilliant YouTuber anyway. So I mean, I won't be surprised if something collaborations do happen in the future anyway.
Yeah, and we've already seen Veloce, because they're an esports team and they've got this F1 side and a bit of racing as well. But they've got a team in Extreme E, haven't they?
Yeah.
I can't remember who drove for them now. Jamie Chadwick, I think. And don't ask me who the other one is.
Let me find it.
So they're not a minor thing. This is kind of a big uptake for them. But is that something Lando's trying to emulate? Because he's got clothing brand with Quadrant as well, I think. Is he trying to become the next what would you even call that kind of company? It's like,
so I mean, the group channel probably is a British invention thanks to the Sidemen, like, realistically.
Oh no
there had been group channels before, but they were never really that successful. But then the Sidemen came in and it took off. And you've seen it hop over to America. You've seen, like, Team 10, the Wave House, the Hype House. I hate these names. And then
FaZe Clan, right?
It's coming, like, it's here. It's like a British thing as well. There's other channels, and I think if you can pull resources, then there's only benefit, isn't there? And realistically, if there's always going to be that figurehead of the channel, like in America, you had, like, Team 10 was the figurehead was Jake Paul, the figurehead of the Sidemen, maybe because it's so developed, but even now, or especially at the beginning, probably KSI was the figurehead. And with Quadrant, Lando Norris is the figurehead. I think it's good for I always coming back to F1 and the brand, but it is good for the F1 brand because especially if they can attach themselves to like YouTubers that like F1 but don't make F1 content. I'm thinking like Zerka. He likes F1, doesn't make F1 content, makes a video with Quadrant. His viewers go, who's Josh made a video with?
Yeah.
Go and watch that. Maybe 5-10% of them like the video, want to find out more about F1, go and watch Drive to Survive, watch the races and so on and so on. I think, and then that gets Quadrant engagement. I think social media is the future, and I think social media is what Lando Norris is trying to tap into, either to he probably increases his marketability. He probably enjoys it as well. So I think that it's only a smart business decision from what is at the beginning. He's at the beginning of a very long career.
Yeah, is there an aspect of like, I know there'll be always going to be fan base that are opposed to anything because it's a divisive sport, but is there a section of the fan base that purist that would be like, drivers are here to drive? If you're spending time running your own clothing company, are you taking that fame that you've got through F1 and kind of manipulating the market? Are you wasting your time? What is that something that's worth thinking about?
I think there is a small section of the fan base that's already like that. I think especially with like Lewis Hamilton, because Lewis Hamilton he's associated with so many brands nowadays, from Bose to Tommy Hilfiger. I mean, loads of the sponsors that are on a Mercedes car are mainly to do with Lewis Hamilton. But I feel that nowadays majority of the fan base would prefer for the drivers to be more than just a racing driver. They prefer to be able to relate to them. So someone like Lando Norris doing stuff like the Twitch streaming and Quadrant and stuff like that, I think that is a much better way to go. But I think there will always be some people who will prefer drivers to just drive. But I think at least 90% would prefer people just to have a much bigger personality in the wider world nowadays.
Okay, last question. Have you seen the Pierre Gasly NFT thing? No.
I have, yes.
Okay. Is that a situation where Gasly's just using his fame that he's got from somewhere else and kind of, I don't think damaging the reputation of Formula 1 is the right way to put it, but is it like putting a bit of a damper on? Yeah. Because there are people who do that, right? There are people who go viral with one video and then everything is like sell out. Is that selling out?
I think he can, if he honestly believes in. Some people honestly believe in NFTs. I'm not one of them. And
no, me neither. Yeah, I mean, they're junk, aren't
they? If he honestly believes in their value, then, and it's not up to him to make people buy it. People are going to choose to buy it, and he's allowed to use the talent he's got the talent to be in F1. He's got the talent to have that platform, and he's allowed to use it for other things. Like Lewis Hamilton makes money off his endorsements and things like that. He's allowed to do that. Like Lando Norris is probably making money off Quadrant. He's allowed to do that if he wants to. Like, you can choose to do these things, and I think that it's fine. I think we need to recognise that sports people are now celebrities. A lot of them are celebrities if they choose to be. If they are good enough, then they can move outside their sport. And to be honest, if it doesn't impact on their results, then it doesn't matter. I think it was Lewis Hamilton in 2019 was criticised for going from Italy to London to New York to Singapore between the Italian and Singapore Grand Prix. He went and did at the Singapore Grand Prix probably one of the best one lap of his career to put that car on pole and win the race. It's clearly not impacting on him, and he's perfectly justified, as are any of the drivers, to earn money from stuff outside of F1.
Okay, there you go. That's going to be our final opinion. In the Raw 1251 studio with the Warwick F1 show, and we're we're going to move on and we're going to talk about kind of special helmets and special liveries. And, until a few years ago, drivers had to stick to one helmet, right? And now we're seeing, I think at the US Grand Prix, was it 10 different drivers with special helmets? What do you reckon? Is it better to have, we're all we're not long-term fans, but, we've been here for a few years. Is it better for new fans to have that single helmet, or is that just not a worry that we really have?
I think livery matters more, personally. You can't really see the helmet with the halo. The one issue I have with IndyCar especially is that it is impossible as a new watcher to tell who's in what team. And especially, I remember watching the race at Laguna Seca. Grosjean's trying to lap people to catch up to, I think it was Herta and Newgarden, and then they said, "Oh, Rossi's Herta's teammate or something," and obviously no blue flag, so he's going to want to hold Grosjean behind. Without that, there's no way of telling. How was I meant to know that Rossi in, I think it was a blue and orange car, is a teammate of Herta in, I think, a yellow and black car? That's one issue I have with IndyCar, and I think it works so much better in F1 that realistically, if you know which drivers are in which teams and don't know driver numbers and can't see the helmet, you've got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. I mean, Crofty still gets it wrong more times than we'd probably like, but at worst, I think the livery makes more of a difference, and then that gives the drivers variety to have fun. I'd love to have a new helmet at every race, just the ones that look really cool.
Okay, so I guess your opinions on what Will said, is it no, I've got questions, but I'm going to come back to them. What do you reckon to that?
No, I fully agree with what Will said. I think is at least having a livery that's consistent, you can actually tell what team it is, and you have at least a 50-50 chance of getting the drivers right. And now in the last few years, especially when we had that, now we have the same driving number for a number designated for each driver. So there's that chance that you actually know which driver it is. You don't actually physically have to look at the helmet. And plus with the helmet, is the only piece of attire or gear that the drivers have that they can go far and creative with, and it like I said, it's really fun to see just to see what the drivers come up with, and especially people like Lando Norris and Danny Ricciardo in particular really going full out creative with the helmets. It's just really fun to see it.
And I guess it kind of leans into the whole personalisation that we started when we got proper fixed driver numbers as well. What was that? Was that 2015, 2014, something like that?
I think it was 15.
Okay, yeah, and that was kind of when we started to notice this big change in Formula One. Let's talk about special liveries then. I'll come back to my questions, but we've seen how many this year? 3? We've seen the
Gulf, McLaren.
Yeah. We've seen the Red Bull.
Yeah.
We saw kind of one for Alfa Romeo at Monza.
Yeah, technically, but wasn't much difference.
Yeah, it was
just a splash of green paint at the back of the car, and that's it.
I think that was it this year, isn't it? What do you reckon to them? Because you've kind of made your opinions clear. If it's you want to see those consistent teams, but is that too much, or is it just a one-off all right for you, Will?
I think liveries, especially if they're very different, the Red Bull in Turkey and the McLaren in Monaco, and then to a lesser extent maybe even the Ferrari in Mugello, and the Mercedes in Germany 2019.
Yep.
I think they work much better as occasions. I think the drivers can have as much fun as they want, but there needs to be some consistency. And I think obviously having those liveries, often they look really good, and that's better for it because they are a one race livery. Although with Mercedes, that livery's lasted for almost 2 seasons now. And personally, I like it better than the silver, and it's quite weird looking back at the races before and seeing the silver Mercedes. But I think, especially because the teams want brand recognition more than the drivers, because the drivers are characters or people still outside the cars. The teams want some consistency. So doing something for a special occasion, like Ferrari's 1,000th race last season, Red Bull's commemoration of Honda this season, and why didn't McLaren do the Golf livery? Just for the vibes.
For the bants, yeah,
for the
I guess.
vibes. And even for the vibes, and especially because the Golf livery is so good looking. I think that one-offs will be hit. And now, especially because we haven't seen it before, we only saw it, I can only think, like 2013 Red Bull, where they did that fun one with all the photos.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of kind of pit crew stuff, haven't we? Especially from Red Bull. Red Bull are kind of prolific at it. But I guess that comes from not being a car company so much as they're very brand focused anyway, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, I think on the rules you allowed like one race, right? One per year. Would you like to see that from every team every year?
I don't think teams would run more than one exceptionally distinct one per year.
Yeah.
I don't mind having minor ones like you saw with the Alpha this year, because realistically it still looked like an Alpha. It just had a few Italian flags on it.
Yeah.
But major ones, I could only see teams running one a year maximum.
Yeah. I think the main bit with liveries is at least if you can, it's the cars are just recognizable as they're distinct from the rest of the grid. Then I have no problem. Then I have no problem with teams trying out doing minor changes or even go for a complete new respray like a Golf livery one-off or something. But like Will said, is perfectly what I would think as well.
Okay, right. A little bit more drastic. You said, Will, the first thing you said was it's about being able to recognise what team, but you also said it's difficult to see what kind of driver it is. So let's try and find a happy medium. Can we have a livery like I think Dragon in 2019 in Formula E, where they had colour flip? So you know, the Alfa Romeo livery was pretty much like went from being red on the bottom, white on the
like
top.
the Alpha Tauri especially.
Yeah. Could we have liveries like that, one per driver? Is that something that you'd like to see, or?
Then you're getting a bit more IndyCar, and really, that is one of my biggest pet peeves about that sport or that series, is that you cannot tell who's teammates. And I don't think it really works. Obviously, you've got some, like, it works for Alfa Romeo, it works for Alpha Tauri, probably Williams, but then you're getting into, like, Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, the big teams. You can't really invert a Ferrari car, can you? Because they both want to be red, and you understand that.
But they got their burgundy, right? No one likes it, but
it could work. I just don't really. I don't really see the need. I don't think it's not an idea that needs to be fixed. It's not like an Indy car where I would pay so much money for that to be fixed. I'd literally buy the series and force them to run team like liveries. That is just, it annoys me so much. But I think what we have now, I think, is we've reached the peak of what it can really be. We've got the drivers have as much creativity as they want to. The teams technically also have as much creativity as they want to, but they are balanced by the fact that they want brand recognition. So we could I'd be happy to see this continue into the future. I think having, just drivers, as many helmets as they want, teams, one-off liveries on special occasions, and then I think that's fine. I think Liberty are happy to have it because they love the buzz of one-off liveries. Like the buzz of the Golf livery was off the scale. Even the buzz of the Red Bull livery. That's probably why they got told. They must have told Codemasters to get that in the game.
There must be some communication
Yeah.
there, I'm sure. Okay, then we're gonna move on after the break, of course. And we're back with the Warwick F1 show. And we're really going short and sharp now, running out of time. So we're going to talk, for the last section this hour, about kind of segueing on a little bit. And I want to talk about what would happen, or how we fix Monaco. And we'll start with special liveries again. So we've talked about what would happen if teams did one special livery a year. But what if they did one special livery a year at one race a year at Monaco?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't. As much as the liveries would look beautiful on the night lights, I wouldn't want to see in Monaco night race.
Nope.
Mainly
That is not what I. We're gonna come on to that. I've
special liveries.
Yeah,
at Monaco.
I've distracted.
No, it's fine.
We were talking about that over the break,
Hang it
so
up.
I'll forgive you for that. But
yeah, but like, yeah, I'll continue my point. I mean, as much as the liveries were just like beautiful under the lights, it would. I kind of just like, because it would just hide all the rest of the scenery, like the harbour would look nice because obviously the lights and stuff. But like, for me, majority of what makes Monaco really nice is just the scenery around as well. The Riviera, just like with the mountains and stuff like that. I just feel that sort of bit would take away a lot of the charm of Monaco, in my opinion. Even though a night race would look cool with liveries and stuff like that.
So I mean, well, I'll do both. So special liveries could work. I mean, if you're going to pick a race to do it, it's fine. If you were going to pick a race to do it, Monaco would be the one. Night race, yeah, you'd have the big bright lights. It would feel like a event, like a not black tie, like just a glamorous event at night in Monaco, things like that. I'd like, yeah, and then maybe you marry the two and you go for like a sunset race. You have the sun setting over the mountains as they start, and then we finish under the lights.
Where have we seen sunset races before? We see
Abu Dhabi's a sunset race. I don't think there's been any.
I think maybe the first Bahrain one was, or the second Bahrain one was, or something like that.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think the first Bahrain race last year was a sunset or something like that, and then Sakir was the one where the outer loop was night.
Well, we see a lot of night races in Asia, right? We've seen Singapore has been like I think Singapore's the best one. I don't know about you guys. What do you reckon's the best night race?
I'd say Singapore. That's, for me, the whole charm of the race.
There you go. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I think Singapore gets a lot less criticism than it probably merits just because it's a night race.
Well, does the same thing not apply for Monaco, right? Well, I know we have the glitz and glamour already. I know it's the jewel in the crown, so to speak, but we don't get good racing there. And Singapore was pretty much universally hated as I don't know.
I think Singapore's always been night.
Has it? I'm sure.
It's more Bahrain,
Okay.
especially. Bahrain on the calendar in 06. I want to say 06. It might be wrong, but came on the calendar in was it 06? Because I feel like they didn't race there in 07 or 08. Someone Google that. But came on the calendar as a day race. Wasn't really loved. It was a very tolerable race. It was yellow. It's just yellow. Lots of desert. Switched to a night race in 2014. I know that for a fact. And suddenly, that's one of the best races on the calendar now. Because maybe you just got unlucky with how the racing was before it went dark. But it just makes it better. And I almost feel like, and I think F1 switching to it as well, Bahrain is the new opener. Open with a spectacular looking night race before going into like the day ones, and then you end at the night of the season, like the end of the season, with the battle coming down to the final races or the sunset race in Abu Dhabi. It's great for the, I guess, just the narrative, and I think Bahrain works a lot better as a night race, and I think Singapore also works good as a night race, but obviously the traditional ones, the ones with no lights basically, are always going to have to be in the day.
I think I was thinking because Singapore was the first ever night race, wasn't it? Maybe that threw me off.
Now I need. It was 2006, maybe. Hang on.
Well, what do you mean, maybe?
No, because it said 2004 somewhere. Someone else taught Wale.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to cut to a break because I said we're going to go short and sharp.
It was 2004.
2004 was the first race?
Yes.
And then you said it missed 2007 and 2008?
No, Massa won both of them. I just can't remember the Bahrain Grand Prix that season.
Okay.
I guess that's sort of...
Oh, no. 5 and 6 year old Will can't remember that.
Well, no, I feel like... I guess that just proves my point, that the day races at Bahrain are so forgettable. And we remember the night races. The Duel in the Desert 2014... The start of the season, which I still think is one of the top 3 races this season.
Yeah,
the
this 2021
season.
I thought it was a cracker, yeah.
What an opener that was. But the fact is, we can remember those races. Obviously, maybe that was just unlucky that in the day we didn't have something good, but I feel like there's just an extra layer of magic under the lights.
Okay. Yes or no, Monaco night race? Chinmay?
No.
Will?
Yeah.
I go for yes. And welcome back to the Warwick F1 show. It is the top of the hour here on Raw 12:51 AM. My name is Jack Rowe, publicity officer for Warwick F1 Society. We're joined, of course, by Will Kingswood, the head of sport at Raw. Yeah, whatever. He's nodding. He's forgotten his... I didn't even put his mic up. What a disaster, right. And I'm also joined, of course, by Chinmay from, I guess, both of them now, both. Right? You've betrayed me and joined Raw as well, but...
we welcome you with open arms.
Okay, we get it. And we're talking about a mismatch of topics here. We've gone through 5 kind of mini topics that we can't stretch into a whole show, but we can definitely fit in 10 minutes. And we're going to keep going on that front, talking about Pirelli. And I want to know, because they took over from Bridgestone, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In 2014? Was it earlier than
it was 2011.
Oh, was it way earlier than that? Okay, no, I'm right. I'm sorry, I'm way off. Have they done a good enough job, basically?
I mean, I think they've just done what they've been asked to every year. And I think, to be honest, they've probably got more criticism than they deserve. They were asked to create tyres that fell apart in the first few years. They did that. They probably fell apart maybe slightly too quickly, but they've done what they've been asked to, and I think now especially I've got little to no issue with the tyres. I think they offer, maybe I would say they're slightly too durable, but then maybe they're not. I think the tyres now are very fine. They're there. They can influence a race with strategy. They allow for that strategy. But they're not going to fall apart every 5 seconds, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, nothing. There's nothing wrong with the tyres. I think, especially with Pirelli now with the new rear tyres with the new construction ever since the Baku incident, the tyres have been extremely fine. I'll probably jinx something that's going to happen in the next couple of races with the Pirelli tyres now. But yeah, I think they don't fall apart too quickly. Yes, that may reduce the interest in strategy, but at least they do as I say in the tin. That's what it is.
Let's talk about Baku then, because we saw... Oh, Will's just winced.
It confuses me that there were only failures at Baku. I know they've made the changes, but...
Do you think it's just coincidence?
I think there must have been something on the track. On the racing line, maybe it was embedded in the tarmac, and people just got unlucky. I think there's correlation and then there's causation. It's just like... Was it Pirelli that caused the 2 tyre failures? Was it the Pirelli tyres that caused the 2 tyre failures? Or was it that 2 tyre failures just happened to occur within 10 laps of each other? Because we've seen tyre failures happen before, just running over debris. But it happened to Bottas in Baku. Obviously, that was definitely debris because you could see it on the track. I think they just got unlucky. Maybe there was something wrong. Maybe there was something wrong with that batch of tyres. Maybe there was a design defect and it just hit Stroll and Verstappen before it hit everyone else.
Because they did an investigation, right, and they said that it was debris, but they didn't kind of explain where or like how they came to that conclusion. Do you think the fact that the two incidents both happened on the front straight is kind of more evidence of that, or is it just like, is it just coincidence?
I don't know, maybe a mixture too, because when we see the front straight, we're talking about Baku. It's an extremely long straight, and then I think Lance Stroll was at the beginning of the straight, and then Max Verstappen was right at the end at the start finish line. So maybe it could have been a little bit of debris. Maybe it could have been something with the surface of the road, because don't forget it is a public road at the end of the day. But maybe it could have been, but I think it's probably a little bit more of a coincidence than anything else, and just a little bit overwear of the tyres and just sequence of events, wrong place at the wrong time.
Okay, well, there have been other incidents as well from Pirelli. Can you remember which of the Silverstone races was it last year?
It was 2013 Silverstone. I was thinking of the exact one.
I was thinking last year Silverstone with the...
Oh yeah, there was that as well.
With Hamilton and Bottas.
I was thinking early Pirelli.
All right, remind me of 2013 Silverstone.
All the tyres blew up. There were like 5 tyre failures. I think Hamilton had one. I want to say Perez might have had one. But yeah, there were 5 tyre failures. They changed the tyres, and from what I remember, that seemed to really benefit Red Bull, and Vettel went on to win 9 straight races after that. And then obviously, as you were saying, we had last year. I think the Silverstone especially is a very tyre demanding circuit, which is why had they changed the rules by Silverstone on pressures from Baku? They must have, surely. Because you look at Silverstone and the amount of tyre issues that we've had at that track. We had 13. We had, I want to say, 3 last year.
I don't know.
Oh, it was Kvyat, Sainz, and Bottas and Hamilton, so 4. So Silverstone, I think, is the peak tyre potential for problems track.
I think they actually did change the tyre. I don't think so if they did it specific for Baku, but I remember they did increase the tyre pressures for the race after that, because Silverstone was 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I think they have different tyre pressures per track, don't they?
Yeah.
Or is it? Yeah.
They must do.
Yeah, because obviously different tracks will have different, because obviously there's 5 different tyres for the...
Or maybe they've got different compounds and that mandates running at different pressures or something.
Yeah, anyway, the point being, we can't, it's difficult to say whether, because of Baku they changed it to Silverstone. And let's talk about very quickly about the new diameter tyres. I have immediately forgotten the number, but they've introduced bigger tyres to Formula 2, and they're doing the same to Formula 1 next year.
I think it's 18-inch rims. I'm not sure on the tyre. Well, I think...
Well, yeah.
Are the tyres the same size?
I think the tyre diameter is bigger, but I
don't think it's... I think it's slightly bigger, and it doesn't compensate for the amount the rims have grown.
Yeah, there you go. So the obviously the wheels are going from 13-inch to 18-inch. The tread width is staying the same as this year, but the overall diameter is just going to increase very slightly at the end, because obviously it's low-profile tyres as well. Going into.
Okay, so... We've had a look recently, and there's been some talk about whether having those bigger tyres is going to make the cars faster, because you get less rolling resistance, and because I cannot remember for the life of me. I'm not technical enough.
I'll Google while we're talking. I'll look up why we're changing the tyres.
Do you think that was kind of the key opportunity to because there's been some talk about other tyre manufacturers. I can't remember. It might have been Firestone. Is that is that them locked in for 3 years now or 4 years now, or do you need a change of regulations like that to change tyre manufacturers?
I don't think so, not necessarily, but it would be a lot helpful for if it's a new tyre manufacturer to come in for the regulations to change, because obviously Pirelli have had the last 6-7 years to perfect these sort of tyres and the ranges and stuff that what they provide to perfect. So obviously the tyres has been developed to the best they possibly can in this last 7 years. So, but I think we've seen other tyre manufacturers come in at the same time with the same regulations. I think it was a Michelin and Bridgestone happening at the beginning of the millennium, and obviously they went side by side with each other. But obviously it would be easier if there were new regulations for a new tyre manufacturer to come, especially with the R&D that costs nowadays, especially with everything becoming so much expensive to develop.
I think it's to increase the working range. So I guess with more rubber, there's more rubber to be cold, and you've got to get it. I don't know, it might be right, but theoretically, if there's more rubber that's going to be cold, and you have to get all of it within that working range. And if you go too far, then some of it's going to start to overheat. So if you've got less volume, I guess, it can be in a working range for a lot longer. And that means the driver's going to be able to push harder. And in the FIA's favourite two buzzwords, improve raceability. Which I'm pretty sure that second one isn't even a word, but...
Well, we'll have to see whether it does improve raceability into next year. But we're not done talking about this year yet. We'll be taking a quick break, and then we'll be back with more little sections. And we're back with the Warwick F1 show for the... Oh, good. We're on the seventh segment now, and we're going to talk a little bit about the new pit stops. So in whatever month it was,
I want to say Hungary.
It was just before just before the break, wasn't it?
Yes, so that was Hungary.
So yeah, in Hungary we saw changes to the way that pit stops are done. There's I can't remember what the time it is, 0.2 to 0.3 seconds between dropping and going.
Yeah, I think they were meant to be in Hungary, but actually they introduced it in Spa.
Well, that one well. We got lots of pit stops in Spa. Yes, we all know.
All the pit stops.
Yeah.
That's my favourite. That's my favourite race of the season.
Yeah. Is it?
It definitely won't be 22nd.
Are we going to have to rank them all like 22 to 1?
Yes,
are we?
We are. That will be a show. I will make that happen.
Okay. All right, back on topic. New pit stops. Is this right? We know that rules can and will be introduced to limit the effectiveness of teams. We saw it in 2005 versus Ferrari. We've seen it obviously 2020 and 2021 versus Mercedes. Is this here to limit Red Bull?
Yeah, probably. But rules have always got. There's always going to be teams that have rules against them, and they realistically, the FIA can just go, we've done this for X. Oh no, it affected the team we wanted it to affect. However could we have seen that happen? Like the rules for the aero rules were likely brought in to bring back Mercedes into the fray, but they were done with under the guise of I think it was the FIA's favourite word, raceability. So realistically, these pit stop rules done under the guise of safety. Have there been pit stop issues this season?
I mean, there's the longest pit stop ever by Bottas.
There is.
That's not safety
there are the
issue,
46 hour. Was it 46 hours?
Something like that. I love that. Yeah. When was the last time we saw safety issues in a pit stop? Was it back with Raikkonen at Bahrain?
So I mean, we've had a few incidents that aren't really the pit stop's fault. Like Hamilton and Stroll both hit the front jackman, but that's not really the pit stop's fault. Probably Raikkonen running over his own mechanic.
Yeah.
A few tyres that weren't attached properly. One of the Hasses in Turkey last year? I think it might be Magnussen. The two Hasses in 2018. I think the Haas in 20... Maybe Haas should just be banned from pit stops.
Yeah, especially in Australia.
So that's there for safety reasons, right? And I think it was because people were dropping the jack and as the tyres were starting to spin up, right?
I think everything was just getting really, really, really close together, and it was because the record got down to 1.8.
I think it's 1.83, yeah.
1.83 by Red Bull, who I think have about the top 8 fastest pit stops in F1. Like, their mechanics are supremely quick. But 1.83 seconds to change, like, 2 tyres. So 1.83, we did that. I think we did this last week. Well, 1.83 is now to about now. That's 2 seconds. So it's 0.2 of a second quicker than that to change 4 tyres, get the car up, put the car back down.
And possibly even make wing adjustments as well.
It probably did need to be slowed down ever so slightly, and I think that we're just seeing teething issues at the moment.
Okay, so there's a minimum time, but when you're changing tyres, teams are obviously not going to know whether it's minimum time or not. So is this just another sporting regulation like the fuel, where teams are going to push it and push it and push it and push it until they get to 95% the limit or whatever?
Yeah, probably. It's just, I mean, this is Formula 1. The whole point of Formula 1 was to push the limits of technology. Of course, they're going to push as far as they possibly can.
Okay, so we've talked about kind of, this is not limiting teams, is it? We're still seeing 2.1, 2.2 second pit stops. Why didn't they go the whole hog? Why didn't they say minimum 4 second pit stop? Because then you have those times when recently Ferrari or Haas make massive errors and you get 6, 7, 8 second pit stops, and you're still punished for that. But you no longer put those mechanics in the situation where they have to get this tyre off in a split second. Would that be more safety? Is that too much to ask from Formula 1?
It's probably a bit arbitrary. I think my point would be is it removes any of the skill involved. Obviously, we're slowing the pit stops down, but the faster teams are still going to do the pit stops faster, you'd think. Whereas if you go, realistically, every team is aiming for a sub 2.5, I'd say, is a realistic goal for every team, as what I guess would be a perfect pit stop. Maybe Red Bull would go lower, some other teams would go higher, depending on how they see it. But if you go down to 4 seconds, and it just removes any of the risk, because inherently pit stops are risky. Like, you're changing 4 tyres as quickly as possible, mistakes can happen, and those mistakes can decide championships.
I mean, I'm not sure there's much more to say on that topic, which is fortunate, because we're going to take a little. And we're back with the Warwick F1 show. Just a couple of sections left, right? 3, I guess, total. And we're going to talk about sprint races, because we've had the 2022 calendar announcement with this bumper crop of 23 races, and we've also had CEO of Formula 1, Stefano Domenicali. I really hope I've got his name right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we've had him saying he wants, how many sprint races was it?
He wants to gradually make it so every race has a sprint race.
Okay, I think he's thinking of, I think it might be 6 or 7 in 2022, right? Let's start with the basics, right? Are they good? Like, there's the purist view, and then there's the, I guess, just more racing kind of view. Where do you stand?
I mean, I like the fact that there is more racing with the sprint races. There's just more for fans to see. But I just feel that I'm still not 100% convinced by sprint races. I don't know why, but there's just something about the old qualifying system which I just like.
Well, what about you?
I think the weekend format would need restructuring, making sprint races making sprint races an addition as opposed to an integral. Like, at the moment, the way it is, so you qualify for the sprint race, then you sprint for the for the race grid. It doesn't really work, because it just bolts on. It just makes the race 130. It just makes it 133% of what we would have got normally. because it's a third distance.
Yeah, I guess that's a valid point of view. I'm going to put my own opinion in there as well. People work. People don't have time on Friday to go and watch quali, right? I mean, it depends on where you are in the world, what time it is, but generally, if we're taking a very Eurocentric view here, it's going to be a time when people are working. Do you not think that, I mean, I guess you, both of you are kind of the same point of view, but is that not worth taking into account as well for these guys? Do they not need that FP1 and FP2 on Friday so that the really die-hard fans have got something to watch, or the people who aren't working? But they're not so competitive.
I'm just trying to think what time it is for the Americans. It would be midday.
Oh, who cares about them anyway?
No, but the thing is, we are trying to cater to the Americans. I know. I don't like it either. We should definitely never cater to America in any way, shape or form. But even for America, it's midday on a Friday. It's still not going to be watched qualifying, especially. I mean, I think there'll be a gradual change on the start of races to suit the Americans more, but hey-ho. I just don't see that it introduces too much unpredictability for something that isn't enough reward. Because if you qualify... Well, Perez in Britain, prime example, qualifies 5th, 6th, something like that. Goes into the sprint race, spins off, starts a race to the back of the grid. That's the race over. Gasly in Italy, hits his front wing on. Who was it? I didn't watch it. The sprint race.
It was just in front of Hamilton, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I cannot remember for the life of me.
All right, Gasly. He hits his wing on someone.
Was it one of the McLarens? I think
Might have been
Ricardo.
Yeah, probably that sounds right. Hits his front wing on someone, but that breaks. He goes off at Curva Grande, starts at the back of the grid, and that's race over. And it's all for the reward of 3 points maximum. It's not, they need to change it. So in my view, the sprint race is a standalone event where we do, maybe it's just a standalone event. Maybe, I don't know. I just don't really see the need for it. I understand more racing, but just make the races longer if you want that.
The thing is, we see in some places, qualifying's a really big event, isn't it? It feels like there's that 2 day, two massive event that you have to watch format, and changing it to the 3 day, does it? I feel like it just dilutes both events for me, rather than I don't have 1.5 times the excitement. I've got the same level of excitement, just spread over a day that I might not be able to watch. So yeah, I guess can we, as a three, we're kind of agreed that sprint races are not that great.
It definitely doesn't work for some tracks.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so why have they introduced it to, like you said, why are they trying to bring it in every track? Because they've had feedback on this, right? I think as a community, I obviously I cannot speak for everyone, but I feel like there has been fairly meh reaction to it. What about this is so good for Formula One? Or at least for the company, for their bank account?
I mean, probably because it's the fact that it's another race, like more people will see more racing. I feel like if we do something, would it probably work if we do something like qualifying in the morning and then sprint race in the afternoon or something like that, instead of spread the whole thing over the 2 days itself rather than do it on the Friday evening? That could work, but...
Are they trying to get more people at the track as well? Is it for television views, or is it for people live, do you think?
Probably.
I think it is more the fans at the track, because they're going to make more money if people go to the event and if people watch it on the telly. And realistically, for a fan, if I was a fan at the track, I think I'd prefer a sprint race. Because then you still get qualifying, you still get the thrill of watching the cars go flat out round the track, but then you just get more racing, you get more for your money. So if from a purely like fan at the track point of view, I think that it works. It just doesn't work at some tracks. Like especially the street ones. I think Monaco, the thrill is the qualifying. Watching those cars go that quickly through those narrow streets. Singapore, probably.
Singapore won't really work. You can barely overtake on that track.
Yeah, so it doesn't work at Singapore.
Well, it's just anywhere where there's bad
it's just
racing, right?
not, bad racing. I think we need to be honest, we need to probably wait until 22, because if the racing is brilliant in 22, they're somehow so close together, it's like overtakes for the lead every lap, then you're probably going to see a lot more support for it. I don't think they picked the right tracks for it this season.
Okay, and we're likely to see it. Has it been confirmed for Brazil yet?
No,
I don't think it has.
But
I think Brazil has been confirmed for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is.
Must have by now. Let me check.
Yeah, because we got 3 sprint races. We only had it in Silverstone and Italy. I think it is Brazil. We're having the sprint quali.
Okay, I'm not. I know that was the rumor, but I'm pretty sure they haven't said anything about it. Well, I guess we'll find out from Will in a second. But where would you like to see it then? Like,
I think it works very well at Brazil.
Okay, and other 2 tracks. Chinmay, pick one. Where would you like to see sprint races, if anywhere?
Probably somewhere like Mexico, because in Mexico you have so many places to overtake. You've freaking got 3 DRS straights for a track that's not very long in the lap time.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, it's sprint race at Brazil.
Okay, excellent. So we got Brazil, we got Mexico. I guess I would put where. So is it just tracks that are really good at overtaking?
No, I think the problem is it doesn't work with how the race structure normally is. You think to the majority of races this season, interesting start, because that's it's always an interesting start. Fairly mediocre first third, before it starts to get interesting in the final third due to either tyres or even weather or stuff like that. Obviously, you can't control the weather. But this season especially, it's always been like, a lot of races have been like that. It's been a interesting first lap, slow next 15 to 20 before it starts to build up to a crescendo in the final few laps. You had it in the USA, in Monza, maybe a bit different. Bahrain, it happened in. Azerbaijan, Russia, obviously those were out of everyone's control. But with the sprint, you're getting the interesting first lap, and it's ending at the end of the boring bit. So it's just not working.
I guess, like, the obvious answer to that is, like, 5-lap sprint race. But then you're putting the cars at risk for
what if a mandatory pit stop
right?
would help?
In the sprint race?
Yeah, then they just run, like... Because then basically
then
you're getting
right?
You're just getting a longer qualifying, and that... I think the issue most people have is that you're losing that flat-out, pure performance aspect of the weekend. And if you did a mandatory pit stop, everyone realistically is going to run double soft, then you've still got that flat out pure performance, but it's over a longer amount of laps, so that could work.
Okay, well, I guess we're just going to move on. Sorry, we've got to go fast and furious. We could talk about sprint races all day or whinge about them all day, but we can't because we've got the rest of the show to do. And we're back. Just 2 segments left to go, and we're going to talk about Grid Girls, I guess, which sounds a bit weird, but they've been out of the sport for a few years now. Again, I'm not going to try and name a date because I've been so wrong this episode. But we had a little bit of discussion. Are you going to look it up now?
Yeah,
are you?
I need to know these things. I'm just gonna know everything by the end of the year. I wanted to say 2017.
Was it that late?
Well, they were. Okay, from the start of 2018, so technically I was right. Oh my god.
It feels like so much longer ago. I'm not doing that. I mean, I already introduced it as the encyclopedia of F1, so I feel like you've got the kudos already. I'm not gonna. not going to add to that. Don't worry. Why did it take so long? Right? Okay. Grid goals, should they be there or not? We'll start with that question.
Not really.
In the state they were, especially.
I don't think they're necessary. I think it was more of a we don't want to change something that's already a thing. And then everyone sort of got like, why are they there? And then we got rid of them. And then people were outraged for exactly 7 seconds and then forgot about it. That's about it.
How about, what was your thoughts on it all?
I think you pretty much said my thoughts exactly, to be fair.
Yeah, cool. That's fine. So...
And it's time for the next song.
No, we're not doing that. I brought this up for a reason. We saw the US Grand Prix 2 weeks ago, and there were cheerleaders, right? I don't know about you guys, but just making that just made me feel distinctly uncomfortable.
It's American.
Yeah, okay.
Everything about that country makes me feel distinctly uncomfortable.
And it just feels a bit unnecessary.
Yeah, it does feel like that. Anyway, the point being, clearly there's an aspect of sexualization of women there. But can we turn this into something better? We've got however long we've got, not very long at all. We've got till the end of the segment, like 5 minutes. What can we do to make this better? Is it entirely unnecessary? Is it adding too many people to the grid? Can we get some fans in there? What's the best, not solution, because it's not a problem anymore, but how can we turn this into something positive?
I mean, they did the grid kids. That sounds weird. They introduced the grid kids just as a replacement. I think they'd still be doing that if it wasn't for COVID, and obviously we've got a bubble now. I think it's a paddock bubble, so if you go into, I think it's like the green zone, you can't leave, and it feels a bit harsh leaving, like keeping children there for a few hours. Children are very fussy. So
we shouldn't be talking about the Americans in the green zone at the same time.
Yeah. But I think they had the grid kids. They'd still be having the grid kids without COVID restrictions. And yeah, I mean, it gives a kid an experience that they'll probably never forget. I think realistically, it was a good not solution, but good replacement. And I think that once COVID really dies away, they'll probably bring it back.
What do you reckon? Do you think they'll actually bring it back?
Maybe, I would say.
Oh yeah, but the PR and letting like children have a once in a lifetime experience is great. That's why footballers take kids out onto the field when they walk out. It's about the experience, and I think F1 would want to get in on that action. Okay,
let's talk about walking out on the field, because that was the exact analogy I wanted to draw. We've seen the walkouts before, right? Very American thing, but we've had it in, we have it in football. We don't think of coming through smoke and busting through a banner and sprinting on the field as a very British thing, but it has been in football for so long. What we've seen it when was it in Formula 1? I cannot remember.
17.
It was one of the.
It was an American race.
Yeah, of course it was.
To be fair, I did actually quite like the novelty of it. I think it works in America. It would definitely not work in anywhere else that's not America. They'll probably do something like that in Miami. Miami's just Austin and Monaco combined, basically. There will be the glitz and the glamour, but with all the Americanism as well. I mean, Shaq showed up in a Longhorn stretch Chevrolet and then stood between Verstappen and Hamilton on the podium and was somehow still taller than Hamilton. There's nothing about that isn't absolutely absurd and very distinctly American.
Okay, so I guess we have the driver tour around the track beforehand, right? We've seen that it's been a feature of Drive to Survive, especially, but it's kind of there for the people watching live. I guess where else is there? The Indy 500, right? They have the drivers come out, I think, the day before or maybe the morning of, before they get in their cars. Do you want to see something like that, or have we got enough driver interaction on the day?
I think it's fine. I don't think it needs to change. The Indy 500 is like, it's a week. Is it a week long? I feel like it's longer than it's like
the month of May.
Yeah,
it's the month of May.
It's like a month-long event.
I think this year they did like they did the road course event during it. But yeah, it's massive.
I mean, I love it because it's always near my birthday, because it's the last weekend of May, so I get the Monaco Grand Prix and the Indy 500 as sporting events around my birthday, and the Champions League. I'm spoiled for choice when it comes to sport around then.
All right, I'll finish flogging the dead horse. What about you, Chinmay? Would you like to see any more driver interaction? Is there something you want more from them, or is it just as good as is?
I think it's just good as it is, really. I think anything more will probably start to come a bit unnecessary.
Okay, well, I guess that section kind of answered the question, right? This is why it's not a full horse show. And we're back for the final section, the final segment of the Warwick F1 show for the week. I guess this segment is where we can big up the Formula One and the drivers in it. I want to talk about kind of the talent pool across the range of top-level motorsport, both kind of open-wheel racing, so you've got Formula E and IndyCar, and, you know, a little bit of we'll talk about IndyCar. We also got, like, drivers from V8 supercars and from NASCAR, and maybe I say, yeah, probably the two greatest drivers from those two series have just joined IndyCar, right, this year, and they competing against, of course, Mr. Robin Grosjean, whose career kind of it went from. How long did he spend in Formula One? Was it 10, 12
2009,
years?
But I don't think he raced for the full season because they kicked out PK. And then obviously he leaked everything. Didn't have a drive for 2010, so I think it might be 11 to 21, or 20, sorry.
So that's 11 years. That's a pretty damn long time. And for that period, it's fairly static for him, right? He gets some podiums. He never won a race, did he? And then he ends up kind of with Haas. And then he's made this new career in Formula E. Like, he looks like a young driver there, right?
IndyCar.
So, yeah, that's the one. Never mind. I'll leave. Chinmay's hosting now. Right, yeah, sorry. In IndyCar, he looks like a new driver, right?
I mean, he's doing wonders. I'm like, it's like this whole new side of Grosjean, like, he's practically acting like a new driver. It's just really fun to see this new, fresh view of Grosjean, of him with this somehow notorious reputation of crashing all the time in Formula One, crashing under the safety car in Baku, and think Ericsson hit him, and so etc. But yeah, it's just like he's getting podiums in his first season. It's not like it's a front running team. I would say it's a upper midfield team at best, and yeah, and now next year he signed up. Was it Andretti Motorsport next year he signed with?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it is just looking like it's like a new Grosjean just coming all out in IndyCar now.
Was he criminally underrated in Formula One, or is it just that the talent pool that we have in Formula One is so much better than in IndyCar?
I don't think he ever got a race-winning car. I think the Lotus in 2012 and 2013 was very upper midfield. I think, obviously, Kimi got 2 wins in 2012 Abu Dhabi, 2013 Australia. But I'd say if I had to compare it to this season, that Lotus was maybe slightly, probably McLaren Ferrari levels, maybe ever so slightly above.
Yeah, and this is pretty unprecedented for the dominance that we've had. Yeah, it wasn't like that back in 2012.
Yeah, so, and it was just like strategies because tyres were all over the place as well. But I think he was underrated. I don't think you get 10 podiums in F1 without being a very good driver. It was just unfortunate that he could never get that win because of how supremely dominant Sebastian Vettel was in 2013, which is probably when he hit the best like years of his career, and then he never really had the car to compete after that. I mean, he just didn't have that car to take those podiums, take those wins. But I think he got a podium. His last podium was Lotus 2015, when I think that team on that weekend in Spa were facing like bankruptcy. He was a good driver. I think he's in sort of that category of driver like Nick Heidfeld, especially, that because they can never take that win, they can never really step into the next class, which is where you get like your single winners plus multiple podiums, and you get your multiple winners, multiple podiums, and so on, and like world champions and things like that. I think there is steps down depending on success, and I think Grosjean, if he had taken that win, would probably be regarded a bit higher than he is.
What do you reckon? Do you think he's underrated?
Yeah, he is underrated. I think people give him too much stick for what he really deserves. I mean, yes, I think especially in the last few years he did get a bit crash happy, let's say, but the fact is he had a very impressive junior career, what people don't remember, and the fact is you don't survive Formula 1 for about 10 years without being a good driver. The fact is being in Formula 1 itself is something special. You're in the top 20 drivers in the world, and you've stayed in there for that long, and you've proved yourself to be in Formula 1 for 10 years. I think for me in itself just shows you're a good driver in itself anyway.
Well, I mean, actually, let me read out something quickly. So in 2013, in 5 races, he finished third, fourth, and second. Like, that's a good run of results in a car that wasn't the best. And without Sebastian Vettel there, then he takes a win, he takes 3 second places, and takes a 3rd place as well. Like, he really just got unlucky that he hit his peak run of form when Sebastian Vettel hit his peak run of form, and because the Red Bull was a better car, especially after the tyre changes in Silverstone, he just couldn't take that win.
Okay, let's flip the switch. So we've talked about IndyCar, we've talked about Formula 1, let's talk about Formula E, and I guess there's no real segue because the drivers who switch around are pretty rare. I think Rosenqvist moved from FE to IndyCar, and Gasly drove 2 races in Formula E, and then we had Jean-Eric Vergne, obviously very successful in Formula E, and Felipe Massa joined and was not even remotely successful in Formula E. Where does that stand in the kind of comparison to the 2 that we've talked about before?
I mean, I think there's a reason you see it go one way and not the other. Like,
well, have we? I mean, I guess we've never seen a Formula E driver come to Formula 1.
DeVries has been thought of to go from Formula E to Formula 1, and I mean, I've said it before, I don't think DeVries necessarily deserve that Williams seat, and I think from a sporting perspective, I don't think that it would have made logical sense for Williams to pick a driver that's 26 years old who took 3 seasons to win in F2, arguably winning it in 2019 in one of the weakest grids that we've had, and then took a while to be successful in Formula E as well. And realistically, because of the way Formula E was structured, about 17 different drivers could have won the title that season. So even that, it wasn't really a dominant performance. So, and then like if Nick DeVries is the best option to go from Formula E to Formula 1, and I've just made a load of points that sort of show why he doesn't maybe look like such a good option on paper. I just can't see a Formula E. The Formula E is definitely below Formula 1 in terms of stature and probably driver ability as well.
I guess you clarified it's below Formula 1, but Formula E versus IndyCar. Let's not go, one's better than the other, because I think there's a wide driver range across both. if you just finished a Formula 2 season, you were just rejected, would you rather go drive in America, where you've got, you know, I guess the competition's pretty decent, but there's more range of teams, or would you rather go drive in Formula E?
I'll probably go IndyCar, but that's more of a personal bias than anything else.
Well,
I mean, is F1 completely off the table? Because I still think a lot of drivers wait for that F1 seat, or at least a testing seat.
no, you've been entirely rejected.
Okay,
you've got
fine.
the option of 2 midfield teams in both.
I'd
both
100%
series.
go to IndyCar. Because I
Okay.
think IndyCar looks more fun. Like, it just does. Formula E, you're on street circuits, and the cars aren't especially quick. Whereas IndyCar, you can go from road circuits to, and if you feel comfortable, you can go to the thrill of an oval circuit where one like degree of steering is the difference between you putting it on pole, putting it in 10th, or putting it in the wall. That seems like, and because it's more, I know they're both meritocratic, or more meritocratic, if you're good enough, you can fight for wins. And I think I'd rather win in IndyCar than win in Formula E. And I think, honestly, that's why Grosjean wants to do oval races next season. I know he said at the start of the season he wouldn't do oval races, but I think just
He's caught the bug, hasn't
the
he?
thrill of it must be like so alluring. Can he? Because if he could win realistically as well with IndyCar, which is not the same as FE, maybe because it's not been around long enough, or F1 especially, you can last for a lot longer in terms of age. What, Castro Neves won in the Indy 500? He's 40, I want to say 46. Grosjean still got...
He's
probably,
late 30s, yeah.
Yeah, late 30s. He's still probably got like a 10-year IndyCar career.
Scott Dixon is 40, isn't he? He might be 41. He was the most recent winner before Alex Palou. So.
Castro Neves was born in 75. So that's, he's 46.
Okay, so are we going Formula 1, IndyCar, Formula E?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, on that note, we're going to have to end the Warwick F1 show. I hope you've enjoyed listening. You can come along to the... Okay, I'm not even going to say that. Mexican Grand Prix watch along on Sunday. Make sure you follow our Instagram, Facebook, Discord, whatever, to listen to that. And